This is the Drive-In Podcast. Take one. Bada bing, bada boom. Welcome to a very special edition of the Drive-In Podcast. This is Dr. O on the horn, and I'm joined by Ricky Flicks, and we have just gotten home following Matt Reeves's The Batman. We went to an AMC at a very special viewing tonight, and I got to be honest, Ricky Flicks, I had the indisputable best theater experience I've ever had in my life. Ever. Bar none. I don't think it's close. This was euphoric. This was a movie that I had such high expectations for, and I knew Matt Reeves had something special for us, but it still exceeded the expectations. Still exceeded them.
Let me try.
Doc Senior is now on the horn here. He is offended that he was not invited with Ricky Flicks and I to AMC tonight to see the special viewing of the Batman.
Hello.
Yeah.
There he is. We can hear you. I can hear you.
Could have got the drinks from you beforehand.
We didn't get drinks.
We went stone cold sober. All we needed was the high of the Batman. Doc Senior. He is so disappointed right now. The YouTube is seeing this. This is incredible.
That's just a dagger.
Oh, jeez. I don't know what to say.
A dagger.
I don't know what to say except I had to see it.
It's also good. The pod listeners have to realize that Dr. O cannot hear us. Doc Senior cannot hear a single thing I'm saying right now. Cannot hear a single thing. He's about to shut the door on Ricky Flicks. Ricky Flicks has his headphones in, so he can only hear what I'm saying. Doc Senior hears nothing.
You see this? Look at this.
Ricky's showing off his commemorative Batman popcorn holder, the Batman popcorn holder. I also got one. I think Ricky Flicks should give his popcorn holder to Doc Senior as a gift for shutting him out of seeing this so picture.
There's no sound for him.
Well, I am listening to my headphones, and if I unplug it,
this is the best intro to a podcast of all
I
time.
didn't see his popcorn bucket.
Yeah, we both got one.
I didn't see him holding it.
Yeah.
I'm holding it right now. Oh, you still can't hear me.
Cleaning it. You got a hand wash. It says it right there.
Ricky Flex, we got to find a way to we got to find a way to record. It's 11 at night.
Okay.
Make a move here.
So now you're kicking me out.
No, I'm not.
Oh, he found out, but he can't hear me still. He can't hear me still. He is so pissed. He is so pissed that he was not invited to the Batman. Little does he know that I already bought tickets for a Friday showing with Doc Senior.
Ricky, there's nothing left.
Okay.
He has no idea the mic's picking him up. This is almost as good as the movie. It's almost as good as the movie. But Ricky Flex, are you back?
Yeah, I'm back.
Okay, so as I was saying, this was an absolutely euphoric experience. This is, in my opinion, going to be the most discussed comic book movie potentially of all time. It is a differentiation from everything we've seen from DC, especially from Marvel. And this was euphoric in a way that it was like a fresh air. It was something that I thought I knew it was coming, and it did deliver, but exceeded those expectations somehow. Ricky Flex, initial reactions to seeing the Batman.
We saw the Batman. I am discombobulated right now. I'm not going to lie. I don't know what. I thought I was in a state of shock after seeing the Batman. Now I don't know.
I'm not going to sleep tonight.
I loved it. I thought it was amazing. I thought it was almost perfect. It was very well done. I won't say it was better than The Dark Knight, because I don't think it was. But this movie is very rewatchable. This movie is 3 hours long and it's rewatchable. That's impressive. That is an impressive feat. And I will say this, it is one of the best superhero movies of all time. Without a doubt.
Easily. Even just one-time viewing, you knew it. And I'm not closed off. We'll talk about The Dark Knight in a second, or I guess a little bit down the line during this podcast. But over time, I'm not opposed to the thought of maybe this exceeds The Dark Knight, or at least matches it. I'm not opposed to that yet. We'll get into it. I have some differentiations that I guess beefs I have with the Batman compared to The Dark Knight, and why it's not there yet, in my opinion. But Ricky Flicks, I think we have to tell the listeners about our viewing experience. I just said it was like the best theater experience of all time. I think we have to give them the play-by-play leading up to our entrance into the theater.
Okay.
Well, look what we got, Ricky Flicks. We got these commemorative Batman popcorn holders. Not only that, right? So I was in line to get popcorn. It was a big debate between Ricky Flicks and I. Do we get popcorn and do we get a soda? And it wasn't just, it was almost like, yeah, duh, we're getting popcorn. It's a 3-hour movie. But what we had to take into account was what size soda, because what if we have to pee during this? And so we both decided to go small soda, but
incorrect.
You went large?
I went large.
Oh, did you have to pee during it?
I held it in. I was fine.
Had to.
It wasn't drastic.
You had a clear distraction from peeing, right? From what you were seeing on the screen. A little kid did like go in front of me as the beginning of the movie started, and I was getting pissed. I'm like, dude, you had like freaking an hour to use the bathroom before this viewing experience. But as I was ahead of Ricky Flicks in line to go get popcorn, and as I was debating with Ricky Flicks, like what size drink do I get? All of a sudden, this advertisement pops up on the screen behind the cashier. And it says commemorative, or it's like collectible Batman popcorn holder. And I looked at Ricky and he's like, you got to do it. And so I got this commemorative Batman popcorn holder. It's an amazing piece of plastic. An amazing piece of plastic. And it's an amazing design. And it's going to be definitely hanging up in my house somewhere. It's got to be. But I got the popcorn, and then I turned around to go fill up my soda, and I noticed Ricky Flicks got one too. Ricky Flicks, I thought we were just getting one. He's like, I had to get one too for the house. I had to get one for myself. Ricky Flicks, how much did these cost?
Including the popcorn, it was $26.99.
Yes, $26.99. Well worth it.
Amazing.
I mean, I can't let any of my friends touch this because it's gonna break.
It was more than worth it. When we walk into the theater, an IMAX theater, like we walked in, it was like 25 minutes before the movie started. Not a single person had one. We were the only people that bought them.
Dude, I felt actually really cool having this popcorn holder.
Everyone wanted to say, everyone was looking at us and saying like, where'd you get that? Where'd you get that?
Yes.
It was in front of your faces.
We were the cool kids in the room. No one else had it until we walked out and we saw like, oh, there's another person who had the
There's one other person.
I think they thought like we brought it from home.
Yes, I really think so.
And I do need to say they also gave out the Long Halloween, the first edition of the Long Halloween. Ricky Flicks is showing it off to the YouTube right now.
But with the the characters from the Batman, the movie.
On the cover.
Yes.
On the cover. And it just shows you the marketing in this movie was maybe the best marketing out of any movie I've ever seen. Where it goes from the trailer, it goes from the Riddler clues online, the ones that go through New York City that were like almost, it looked like they were graffitied onto walls. And then you have like these commemorative Batman cows that you're filling up with popcorn, the comic book that leads, like that basically guides and source material for the movie that we just saw. And the trailers did not give away much. I feel like people were nervous after the second and third trailer. Maybe we're seeing too much. I mean, you can't predict what happened at the end of this movie. And this is why we're going to non-spoilers. We're going to let you enjoy the movie for the next week. And then we're diving into a spoiler-filled podcast to drop on Tuesday. Okay? So, I mean, Ricky Flicks, where do I start? I guess, did it live up to your expectations, and how did it do so specifically if it did?
This was the most anticipated movie of the year for me. I believe for you as well. And I had the highest expectations after seeing the two trailers, the cast, the already greenlit Gotham PD show, the Penguin series. Everything said this was going to be one of the best, if not the best movie of the year. It lived up to the hype. It lived up to the hype for a 3-hour epic. This is what it was. 3 acts, each an hour, each with its own story. It felt like that. Yes, some of the time it was slow, a detective story, but it was compelling. Then other times it felt like a million miles an hour coming at your face loud in IMAX. It was amazing. It was I lived up to the hype. It lived up to the hype. There were things that I particularly didn't like, or I thought could have been done better. And there were some things where I thought a little too much there. But at the end of the day, it all worked together as a whole very well. And I think that the nitpicks are more the things that I have issues with or think that could have been better are mostly nitpicks, not detractors.
Yeah, there could be some people thinking that this was slow in parts. It's a 3-hour movie. It's not all just a car chase with the Penguin and the Batmobile flying through flames and the Batman pulverizing people. But the movie, I mean, for the most part, I found gripping. Like it had me from the get-go. The first scene it sets the tone for the rest of the movie. And we have a movie. It's just so clear to me the non-comic book movie inspirations for this. And Seven, it just was in my mind the entire time, right? David Fincher's 1995 film with Brad Pitt, Morgan Freeman. That movie felt like it was just the template, like the way these characters interacted, specifically Commissioner Gordon and Robert Pattinson's Batman. I felt like I was watching Mills and Somerset like antagonizing criminals in Seven or antagonizing John Doe, right? It just had that vibe, and it was scary, and it was easily a thriller, and it could have been R-rated if it showed some more of the violence, right, that happened in this movie, but they kind of went with the Tarantino style where it's like you just assume terrible things are happening to these people by these criminals. Won't go into details there, okay? But what do you think of the tone of this movie, and do you think it worked?
It completely worked. The noir tone was amazing. I think the music for the most part was great. And there's this kid behind me after the movie that was upset that the score was the entire movie. And I just wanted to yell behind him, like, listen to the last podcast, because Hans Zimmer's score was the only thing in The Dark Knight. And you weren't complaining when that was played 70 times. And this kid was complaining that this score was played 50 times. So I was just like, Jesus Christ, this kid does nothing. Uncultured swine. But
subscribe to the Drive-In Pod.
But the score was amazing. To set the tone throughout, I thought I disagreed with the guy behind me, and
the score was perfect. It set the tone perfectly.
And I won't say it was as good as a Hans Zimmer, but what I will say is that it fit the vibe of a daunting or haunting Batman, a Batman out for vengeance, a Batman out not to kill, but for revenge. And he is on the beat. He is on that path of vengeance, ready to, like, it felt just like a nightmare for anybody that encountered the Batman because of this music. And then you have the walk out of the shadows from Robert Pattinson's Batman. It was perfect. It followed the new, and then also you mentioned Seven. There was no sunlight in this movie. Even during the daytime, there wasn't sun. It rained half the time. It felt like Seven. The cop, like every single scene, whether it was a club, an apartment building, even if it was nice, it wasn't nice because it was so dark. It was incredible. Everything, it felt incredible.
So like the beginning of the movie, it was terrifying. Like you were on the edge of your seat and like you were like flexing your abs. And whenever the Batman appeared, his introduction, the Riddler's introduction, man, that is going to be talked about for a long time. Like that first scene, my God, it got me going. And combined with the score, as I said before, it kind of showed it worked perfectly with these dark scenes. That's what Giacchino was going for. And it was impressive because Batman at the beginning, he wants to like clean up Gotham, but he's also a part of that fear at the beginning of it. People aren't just afraid of the criminals. They don't know what to think of the Batman. And Robert Pattinson, his character development throughout the movie, I thought was excellent. I think really well written. I think more so than if we want to do comparisons to Dark Knight. I think it's in that capacity, the Batman character, the Bruce Wayne character, I think it's even more well written than Bruce Wayne's Christian Bale in The Dark Knight. I also got to give a shout out to Greg Fraser. Holy crap. This is the best shot superhero movie ever made. This is the best shot superhero movie. I think it's clear. The camera work, the angles, the first person perspective, even when it's not first person perspective, just like the stills that you could take from this movie and the shadow use here, the car chase sequences. Greg Fraser, if this came out 2 months ago, Greg Fraser's winning the Oscar for best cinematography. I'll say
that's high praise. I think I agree with you. I think one of the factors that you didn't mention that I think you should get credit with is that, as if you could see, my eyes keep blinking and they're a little watery because that IMAX screen, though, because it's so dark in Gotham City that they portrayed, and it's raining all the time and misty, but there's lights that flash from you, whether it's in a club or the car chasing and just headlights flashing on you, or floodlights from the cops or from Gotham PD. It just discombobulated the audience. It was incredible. The fight sequences as well with the flashing lights. The cinematography was on point. Everything you said, in addition to the discombobulating lights, I was thoroughly satisfied with Greg Fraser here. I think I agree with you. I would have to revisit, but I think I agree.
As I was watching, as this movie came to an end, I kept thinking about the bonus prediction I had last episode where I was saying this movie will be in Oscar contention next Oscars. And I think I couldn't be more confident in that prediction because in my opinion, this is going to be, as I said before, arguably the most discussed comic book movie ever made. Just because we've had so many different comic book movies since Nolan's trilogy, since Batman Begins to the Dark Knight to the MCU to the DCEU kicking off, and nothing has been shot like this movie. That's when I say it's euphoric. It's nothing that we've seen. It really felt like a breath of fresh air, but also it was riveting. It had an horror aspect, and it dove into so many characters that we love, and it sets up so many different things for the future of this franchise. And that's what I was kind of surprised by a little bit. And we're going to get to one spoiler at the end of this podcast. We'll give you a warning, but it seems like Reeves is committed to this universe for the long haul, whether it be the Gotham City Police Department series, whether it be the Penguin series, whether it be the sequel to the Batman. He is in it for the long haul. And I am so happy because his vision is spectacular. What do you think about this setting up of the Batverse through this movie? Because I think it stood well on its own, obviously, but there's so much potential afterwards.
I think it's great on its own, but it's even better with the potential. I actually think it's better with the potential because you could see. No spoilers right now, but the storylines between all these different characters, it's similar to the Dark Knight, where you have this great cast behind it, and towards the last act of the movie, you could see the paths that each of these characters are going on. And then when the movie rounds itself out, and including the Batman, I feel like that was a great ending to his story at the end of this movie. But just also the supporting cast with all these side shows going on. And I would say this, other characters that don't have shows that aren't the main characters here, there's potential with them as well. And I think that I really, really liked what he did here as a franchise, but you didn't feel like this was a franchise movie. I think that's the biggest compliment you can give to a superhero movie nowadays. And Matt Reeves, Greg Fraser, the cinematography, Peter Craig, co-writer on this. I think they did it. They put this, and obviously just a lot of other people, but those three I felt the most I think that they were the biggest standouts in this movie for me personally.
And it's just not the same formula as a lot of these superhero movies we've seen recently, specifically with Marvel. A lot of times the spinoffs that they're hinting at are so obvious and they're not well embedded into the story. This is the opposite. This is great writing with these characters. I am so excited for the future here. And I don't want the DCEU remotely connected to what Matt Reeves is doing. Let him just live in his own world because what he's created is special. And I talked about this in terms of comparing to the Dark Knight. What does it have to do to differentiate itself? Okay. First off, what we need to say is this one is even more grounded than the Dark Knight. And that's shocking to say.
Easily.
It makes the Dark Knight feel like an MCU film. That's how dark and grounded this movie is. It is banana lands how much this feels like, wow, like realistic, It doesn't overdo it with the Batman gadgets.
Or the humor.
Got the personal stories to it. It really, really hits. Yes, there's less humor in it. But I also said Gotham City, it has to be a character in the film. And with the way it was shot by Greg Fraser, with Giacchino's score, okay? And the way it was such a essential part of the whole movie, Gotham City itself, it was a character. He pulled it off, right?
I think it was a character, but also from the other characters, not like main characters, but the supporting characters and minor characters, the really minor ones. But again, this movie, I think, complemented the city so well. I think that made it more than the other way. Yeah, exactly. You're like, this makes sense. This is coming together. And like once you get to the second act, there's a clear end to the first act, and you'll know it when you see it. There's a clear end to the first act of this film. And then right after that, you're like, all right, they got the background of Gotham here. They did an excellent job, not just with the main points, but the minor points, what I was trying to say. And from there on out, it was like, all right, I know this city, the ins and outs of it, as in I'm very well situated with it. And let's get ready for the Batman to go on a thrill ride with us.
And I got to admit, like having this podcast and like having an episode that debuted this week, go listen to it now, 10 bold predictions for the Batman before you see it in theaters. I felt like I was gambling throughout the movie. When me and Ricky Flex, like we didn't sit right next to each other. We sat front, I sat in front of him, the row in front, the exact same number seat. And so when certain things that we predicted happened, Ricky Flex would kick my seat. And there was one point where something happened that went against our predictions. I turned around to see Ricky Flex's reaction, but then I had to turn directly at the screen afterwards because I couldn't miss a beat from this movie. Did you have that same feeling as we were watching? Like, man, I wonder if I'm going 6 for 10 right now. Maybe I'm going 4 for 8. My shooting percentage is probably at like a 55%. Like, what do you think?
The competitive spirit in me was doing that the entire movie. But I think it was balanced with also, because we've seen so much footage of this movie, it felt like beforehand, I'm not talking about the trailers. I think the trailers, that is the best advertising, best trailers of all time. I won't say it's the best marketing, but I will say the best trailers. They put together some incredible trailers. I think releasing the clips and some of the stills in this movie was a mistake, mainly the clips, because you could predict some of them. That was in my eyes. So it was a balancing of trying to do those bold predictions that we did, predicting when those would happen, but then also trying to predict, all right, when is this clip coming in? When is this going to be in this movie? So it was kind of a balance between the two, which is actually kind of nice because it kept you on your toes, which was the whole point of seeing a movie without being spoiled.
Ricky Flex, I was low-key in my bag with my predictions. Low-key in my bag.
Hey, high key, low-key, high key. There was some hits and misses here. That's why the episode is perfect for someone listening to this now, because you have no idea what we're talking about. And I don't think we spoiled anything right there.
Yeah. Cause I think even the ones that we predicted, they were only like half right. There's like an asterisk next
to asterisk on every single one.
Yes, exactly. But Ricky Flex, what else did I want to bring up? As we kind of like are wrapping up this spoiler-free review before we do our deep dive on next week's episode, we got to talk about performances. We got to, okay? We talked about The Dark Knight, what makes it that's so rewatchable. You got Heath Ledger's performance. And then we also talked about the other supporting characters in The Dark Knight, talk about Christian Bale's performance as Batman. We got to talk about the cast here. And I think obviously we have to start with Pattinson. How did Pattinson do in his first ever outing as Bruce Wayne / Batman? Let's start off with his performance as Batman.
Okay, performance as Batman. This was a differentiator. I mentioned it on last week's pod. Go listen to it if you didn't. This mask allowed him to actually act in this suit.
Yes, the high cheekbones. He had an emotional aspect, even when he's wearing the Batman suit. That was an incredible decision.
I mentioned how last week in the interrogation scene in The Dark Knight, you could see Batman's eyes when the Joker and Heath Ledger's Joker goes, "Your strength, nothing you can do is going to save them." And he's like shocked. In this movie, it's like so much better. It's because of this suit. This suit was a game changer. And not also related to that, not just the acting, also a game changer with the action sequences, because obviously there's a stunt double, but wow, this guy was in his bag.
Yeah.
This guy was on top of his game. I don't know who it is. I don't know what, but wow, this guy is amazing. And it was clearly like a year two Batman. It was clearly throughout the movie. You mentioned how the Batman story arc throughout this movie, and it was even amazing in the Batman suit. I would say better in the Batman suit than it was as Bruce Wayne. He completed a story arc as the Batman. And that was, I'll end it here because I do want to go into more in spoiler territory on next week's review. But it was a great Batman performance, and I will say the best Batman performance there's ever been.
Hands down, it's not close. This is the best person to wear the Batman suit, act as the Batman in the history of Batman films, whether it be just the way he looks with the costume, with the high cheekbones, with the cowl, the acting and the emotion, whether it be anger, fear, and straight up just stunned by what he was actually being confronted with in this movie. It was clear how he was feeling, even when he's wearing that suit, how when he's hellbent towards the beginning of this movie, and he's going through a range of emotions as he goes. And the physicality of this Batman, okay? The voice, all of
it. The voice.
So good. Robert
the
Pattinson.
The justice.
Right. Yes. It's so smooth, and there is a slight differentiation between Batman and Bruce Wayne in this movie. Slight. It's very close.
Enough.
And obviously, Bruce Wayne's a recluse in this movie, doesn't have a lot of interactions with the public, so they don't necessarily know what he sounds like, a lot of people. So it doesn't really matter. Maybe that'll adjust as the movies go on. But I need to say, Ricky Flicks, his role as Bruce Wayne, not that impressed.
Okay, so hear me out.
I'm listening.
When I left the theater, I was like, God damn, we didn't even get to see Pattinson do his thing. But this movie was about the Batman. This movie is what we always wanted to see, is him as the Batman doing the detective work. That's what we wanted to see. And as a year two Batman, also, he's technically like a year two Bruce Wayne. He's back, right? He's not out and about in this movie. Not spoiler alert. Just honestly, yeah, this isn't spoiler. He's not out and about as Bruce Wayne, right? He stays at home and then he goes out to be the Batman. And that's why we don't get a lot of Bruce Wayne. And you mentioned recluse, right? You don't see that development as Bruce Wayne because he's not Bruce Wayne, really. Not yet, that is.
He's
maybe
the
after
Batman
this movie
all the time.
Yeah, but maybe he will down the road in this franchise. That is to be. I think that would, that was a big detractor for me at first. But then again, it's it makes sense based on his story arc as Bruce Wayne that he's not that involved because he's doing nothing as Bruce Wayne, really nothing. And when he's not wearing the suit, he's really Batman.
Right. And I couldn't agree more that I don't have a problem with him not being defined as the quintessential Bruce Wayne after the Batman.
It just ruins your take that he will win an Oscar or be nominated for an Oscar.
Yes, I know. It does, because it's not necessarily a complete character when you think of
right. It ruins your take.
Character. But I agree with everything you're saying. This movie is titled The Batman, and a lot of the time, as you said, when he's not wearing the suit, he's still using his detective skills, right? He's in the Batcave. He's working with Alfred. He's trying to solve this case, even when he's not wearing the suit. And he hasn't developed, they give a lot of room for growth for the sequel of this movie.
I think we're getting the point here. He's so hell-bent on this revenge and being the Batman. He's trying to do his best to save Gotham City from the corruption, from everything that's going on, the crime.
He's consumed by it.
Yeah, he's consumed by this revenge and trying to do what his parents, Thomas and Martha Wayne, were trying to do, right? He wants to do that, but in his way, because he knows the other way was not going to work. The Batman is the way. It's the only way to do it. And I think that leads us to another character.
So we have to talk about Zoe Kravitz's Catwoman, right? So Zoe Kravitz's Catwoman, Ricky Flex, what were your thoughts upon seeing her debut as Catwoman?
I thought she was amazing as an actress. And I actually do think watching Kimmy helped watching this movie. I'm not even kidding, because Kimmy, it's she is she's not hellbent or anything like that, but she's so organized. Like she's very sanitized, she's very order. Like every morning she like works out and does this and this and this, and very organized person. And she's also like very athletic and whatever, very smart. And actually helped leading into this movie. It was like a nice precursor warm up. So I wish I kind of picked that, even though like I didn't love Kimmy, but it was nice to see it translate to this one, but in an active physical role that she was amazing at. I thought it was awesome. And the emotion that she was portraying, her chemistry with Pattinson, I thought she was awesome. Hands down, like for me, total performance that goes to her.
Yeah. So she was sexy and sleek. I think like if I had to compare her to Anne Hathaway, Michelle Pfeiffer, she's now the quintessential Catwoman.
Agreed.
Just like we just said, Robert Pattinson in the suit, quintessential Batman. She's the quintessential, right, Catwoman. Seeing their relationship play out throughout the movie, seeing what their motivations were, how they were similar, yet they went about things differently. I think it was spot on with the comic books. Okay. And it gives so much potential for her character in the future. So I thought she was incredible. Moving down the line here, Paul Dano. You got to talk about him. All right. The Riddler in this movie. This is going to sound so weird, Ricky. I don't know if this was intentional by Matt Reeves, but when he wears the suit, he was in his bag. When he had the mask on, he was intimidating as hell. Okay. And then we have like the scene in the trailer, right? With him in prison. And I didn't like the performance as much when he wasn't wearing the mask and everything. I did like Zoe Kravitz more, but I was impressed with Paul Dano. And I do think that he had a lot to offer in this movie. And like seeing him play like a non-physical type of villain was perfect. I thought the casting was on point. And seeing his motivations as the movie went on, you had an idea before seeing it, but you didn't know exactly. And I thought the writing for his character was pretty good as well. All right. Something you don't see for a lot of comic book villains. So what do you think of Paul Dano here?
Go on your last point. It was written very well.
Yeah.
His character very well. It's not like we didn't see him a lot, but I wish we saw more of him. And it's tough to go into that without spoiling it. So I won't go into more, but I think if you'll see it, you'll understand it. I wish we saw more of him in his bag, but I disagree with you. I thought he was good outside the mask too.
Okay. We'll agree to disagree. I don't think he was bad. I just think he was just so much better. Just like I just thought Batman, like Pattinson was so much better when he was in the suit. It just like, like I just thought that was like a similar thing there. And just like when they're deep into these characters, right? This character acting and just covering their face and still like being able to portray what they want to portray. But we also got to talk about really quick Colin Farrell. Man, I'm excited for the future of this character. We're getting a series with the Penguin, potentially R-rated. Okay. See how he's portrayed as the right-hand man to Carmine Falcone in this movie. I think that he makes the most out of every scene he's in, although with limited screen time. And it's a nice tease for Batman fans and what the future holds, you know?
I thought it was the perfect amount of screen time. I thought everything with this character was perfect. Yeah. And it makes sense. Like his backstory in this movie was very well rounded. It was a complete arc, even though he's probably the fifth supporting character, probably fifth behind Batman, Catwoman, the Riddler, Gordon,
Turturro.
It's close. It's close between him and Turturro, but whatever. At the end of the day, they did an incredible job with this character, and they also set it up for his show or movie or whatever, and also the future of this franchise. It was incredibly done on all accounts. And again, could not tell it was Colin Farrell. It's funny because in our screening, like they had a special, so it was Pattinson, Colin Farrell, Zoe Kravitz, Paul Dano, and Jeffrey Wright. Those five did like a special, like you guys are like one of the few people in the world that are going to be able to see this movie this early. And like they were saying like, congratulations, basically. And like just looking at Colin Farrell and how good looking he is. And I'm just like, he's about to be like unrecognizable. And it's goddamn right. Like on the big IMAX screen, you could not match up that good looking Irish man with this guy. Impossible.
The supporting cast was so on point. and the character designs also on point. You talked about comparisons, how it could maybe match the level of The Dark Knight, because naturally that's what you can compare to with the best Batman movie ever made. And you talked about the writing of supporting characters, these subplots and their storylines, making sure they are it puts together a full movie, right? It's not just a focus on the Batman. For the most part, it does a great job, but I kind of didn't like actually, I'm not gonna say I didn't like it, but Jeffrey Wright is kind of underwritten, I think intentionally, as Commissioner Gordon. And that goes with like your theory. I'm like, okay, it's a Batman. It's year 2 Batman. We know the story of Batman year 1. We know how heavily Matt Reeves takes the source material, whether it be Long Halloween or year 1, with this movie. So I'm not surprised by it, but it kind of goes against, obviously, what was so great about The Dark Knight was everybody had a storyline, you know? But that was the one supporting character that I think was lacking a bit. But as I said before, Jeffrey Wright, I did find spectacular in this movie as well. I think his combination with Pattinson was incredibly entertaining, right? Them trying to go on this noir type of story together and the different avenues they have to take in order to solve this case, and what Batman's able to achieve that Gordon can't achieve, and how they work with one another. I thought it was beautiful to watch, and I can't wait to see them collaborate again in the sequel.
Yeah, I think because like they're the only people they trust, right? And that's not a spoiler. That's just Batman comic book history. So they're always together in the end, but you never saw them as in depth, like doing everything together, like in this movie. So that was very interesting to see. Yeah, they were basically partners, which was insane.
It was free. It was Morgan Freeman and Brad Pitt in Seven. It was. I kept thinking that every time I saw it. And Jeffrey Wright like shaking him down. I'm like, that's Somerset. Like he's doing it. And here comes Brad Pitt with the fire.
And I agree with everything you said. I think he was great. There were a couple of lines where I kind of laughed. I don't know. I kind of laughed out loud. And it's not because of it's just like the way it came off wasn't right. But at the end of the day, like, loved the character. And I think that was a fair assumption that we just gave on Cobblepot, Riddler, Batman, Zoe Kravitz, and I guess the last person to talk to is Turturro, right?
Yeah.
Or am I missing anyone else?
I think Turturro, they had some nice, like, I didn't think he was gonna get as much shine as he did in this movie, honestly. He didn't get a lot of shine in the trailers, but he ends up playing a pretty pivotal role in this story. You know, he's playing Carmine Falcone, which is incredibly important to the source material, being the Long Halloween, the comic that was distributed to us right before we saw it. It was like they gave you bathroom reading in case you had to like go into one of the stalls and then like come
everyone
watch
was
the
there
movie.
early.
Everyone was reading it too. Everyone was reading it. So that goes into like, how do you want to prepare for the Batman? Read The Long Halloween. You must. But I don't want to go into too much of Carmine Falcone because he has some important details that I don't think we can really talk about.
Yeah, I will say, you know, I think Turturro was good at acting. It's just playing Carmine Falcone compared to the comics. I just, you know, it's John Turturro. I don't know. At the end of the day, like, he's a great actor. But to play Carmine, I think it's just a different take on Carmine, even though it's kind of similar. Because he's not as imposing. He's not the same imposing character as he looks in the comics.
He's very slender here.
Yeah.
He plays it like literally played it similar to like almost like a Godfather type of role, in my opinion. That's what I was kind of the vibe when he sees Bruce Wayne at the beginning of the movie. That's
not spoiling anything.
I think that he does give some vibes. All right, Ricky Flex, why don't we throw out some scores and then we'll jump into a quick spoiler warning before we talk about a certain scene in the movie.
I reserve the right to change my score by our next review because I need to see this again. I really want to give this the highest score ever, but my nitpicks are a little bigger than like a Dark Knight's nitpicks. And I don't think that there is like a performance like a Heath Ledger in here, which elevated the Dark Knight and made it its own. But I do think this is the best Batman we've ever seen, which I think makes it up there, but not Oscar worthy. So it won't be as high as the Dark Knight. I'm going to go with a 94 and with reserve the right to go higher or lower after another review.
Okay. I'm going to go a 97. A notch below, 1 point below my Dark Knight score. You gotta give the Dark Knight the benefit of the doubt. This could be an over exaggeration, maybe a hyperbole from us after seeing it. We just left the theater and we got here and we're talking about it. So I also reserve the right to change my score, but I think that the rewatchability of Dark Knight is so important. I think as the years go on, you might want to adjust your score to the Batman, because I think this movie is going to be potentially more rewatchable than the Dark Knight. Why? I think so the Dark Knight, why is it so rewatchable? Performance by Heath Ledger. Okay. The performances here as a whole, the cast is spectacular, similar to the Dark Knight, right? Talking about the Batman here. But I think with the detective noir style movie, picking up different clues you didn't see before, I think that has that quality that the Dark Knight doesn't have. I think there are Easter eggs in terms of the story that was told, clues left by the Riddler that just weren't caught in the first time you watch it, some nuances with the camera work. I think that there is a certain rewatchability this movie will have as years and decades go on. I swear to God. And that's why I'm not, maybe it's a little bold to say it will be more rewatchable, but I mean, we're bold people, so I'm just going to ride with it.
I had 10 bold predictions before this movie. I think that The Dark Knight will be more rewatchable than this one, not just because of the performance, but also the iconic lines in that movie are just amazing. I think like the quotes, it's so quotable.
I wonder what's going to live on here.
Like the comedies that we talk about, we always quote those, right? But we quote The Dark Knight all the time. We quote The Godfather all the time. We quote those type of movies. This one, we're not going to be quoting.
I'm Vengeance, bro.
Okay, yeah, but compared to The Dark Knight, there's not nearly as many.
I don't know. I'm going to see it again. I'm probably going to quote it like right in the next pod, the spoiler review pod. I'll tell you that. We'll see. I think it's hard after the first time. I mean, The Dark Knight, you knew like it has obviously either die or hero, or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. You knew that right off the bat. You're like, that's like the theme of the movie, and it's going to stick with you for the rest of time. So I agree with you in that regard. There's nothing really stuck out other than the two words "I'm vengeance" that like really got you going. All right. So I think did we talk about Andy Serkis as Alfred?
That's what I want. That's what I was relaying to, saying, oh, he's not what Bruce Wayne.
Okay, yeah. Whatever. Stop that. It wasn't that clear. But I'm just saying, Andy Serkis, I'll just say really quick, liked him in this movie. Didn't stand out as much as the other roles. Little underwritten as well. Didn't get the screen time I was hoping for, but I think he was also formidable with his performance.
I think I agree with you. And I think just to add on to kind of relay back to our prior pod with our Alfred predictions here, I liked like the Alfred we got.
And I like the background a little bit. When they described him a little bit, he went into his experiences with the Waynes.
Yeah.
I thought it provides a lot of growth for his character and like to find out more about him as the sequels happen.
Yeah. And he's different than the others, but in a good way. Like I liked what the spin on Alfred in this one. It's similar, but different. Liked it a lot, but just again, underwritten. It seemed like, just what you said.
So that's going to do it for our spoiler-free review of the Batman, right? For those who have seen the movie, okay, Ricky Flicks and I are going to do a quick 5-minute spoiler section, all right, on a certain scene towards the end of this movie. If you haven't seen this movie and you're just looking for the spoiler-free, I repeat again, this is going to be spoilers. So stop listening to the podcast. Make sure you subscribe to us. Okay. Make sure you follow us on social media. We're going to have a deep dive for the Batman on next week's episode, dropping on Tuesday. So smell you for those people that are now leaving the pod. Give a 5-second countdown before we start talking about it. 4, 3, 2, 1. Ricky Flex. We got to talk about this huge scene at the end of the movie. We talked about the teasing of the Batverse, right? They hinted at Oswald Cobblepot, like taking over Carmine Falcone's drug kingpin, but also they hint at Zoe Kravitz going off outside Gotham City, all right, away from Bruce Wayne. And they also hint at Paul Dano still alive at the end of this movie, him going crazy as Edward Nashton, okay, following getting caught as the Riddler and his plan getting foiled by Batman and Commissioner Gordon. But then we have an interaction in Arkham Asylum between the Riddler and none other than who we assumed, Barry Keoghan as the Joker. Barry Keoghan as the Joker. Ricky Flex, initial reactions to his debut in this new Batverse.
So a few things. So first, what do you think of the Joker? One, you think of his face, makeup. It looked like scars on his face, but not a clear look. So I'm not going to assume anything, but didn't look like makeup, like the white makeup we saw with Heath Ledger, Jack Nicholson. It looked like it was just scars, no makeup on. And then his hair is he kind of looked like Two-Face, as in like with the scars and the hair, the comic book version of Toothpaste a little bit. So that was my first thought. Now the voice. Second thing. Definitely a younger Joker. I know Heath Ledger was 28, rest in peace, but like this one even seemed younger just by
24 or something.
Yeah, like this one, I didn't mind it. He was very calm, cool, collective, but you could tell by the ways he was saying, he was inferring a lot of things and giving us a lot of things that the fans want to hear that refers to the Joker, but without him saying he's the Joker. And then lastly, it's the laugh. The laugh. At first, I was like, not bad. But then it pans away, not as close to him. And I'm like, wow, that was a good laugh.
Good. It's
good,
Ricky.
It's refined. It's the breathing. Sorry, go ahead.
He's 29, by the way. I just wanted to say.
Gotcha. Okay.
But I couldn't agree more. I wasn't sold on the laugh when he first started to go, but as he started to carry it a little bit, I'm like, wow, he's actually really into this right now. And Matt Reeves has teased that there's a second scene with Barry Keoghan that he had to cut, but he says it will surface at some point. Can't wait to see it. I think also they're not exactly sold on what the character is going to look like. So I think that's why Reeves didn't give a full facial of the Joker. Okay. So it did look like he is scarred up. He makes a clown reference. He doesn't say he's a clown. You don't really see if he has makeup or not. His hair is like splooched up, right? Almost looks like it has product in it somehow to keep it sticking
like
up.
Like a Harvey Dent in the comics.
So it doesn't give you a clear cut look at him, but it does give you a preview of the voice and the laugh. And you got to wonder, like, it's almost, we talked about the Long Halloween, how you have multiple villains, right, intertwining in that story. The Riddler's also the Riddler, I don't think makes an appearance in Long Halloween, but there is a collaboration with the characters that at the end of that story could we be looking at a team up between the Joker and the Riddler with Penguin coming into the fold, or maybe maybe it's just time that Barry Keoghan just takes a hold of the next movie, a la Dark Knight with Heath Ledger, and see what Reeves can do with this character and Keoghan can do to create something different. Although we have gotten many different Joker iterations over the past like decade.
Yeah, I think it's the latter, what you said. I don't see a team up happening. The Riddler, this was his movie. He did a great job. This movie reminded me like, wow, this is a great like villain scheme. The scheme was
perfect
great
for a grounded story.
Yeah, perfect. It was very well executed. Great performance, a good performance, but I don't want to see him back. Even though I love Paul Dano and I love the Riddler, this is clear indications that, hey, you did well, bud. That's literally what you're saying. You did well. You're not a clown, but it's time for the clown to come in and get even crazier. That's what I inferred it as. He's kind of going to take this mantle, this Gotham wake up. There's a huge problem. And he's going to just take Gotham by storm even more. This kind of like the Riddler like opened things up. And now the Joker is just going to come in and just take control of it.
I'm nervous that it has too similar of a beginning of the story like the next movie is going to have too similar of a story to the Dark Knight, not just because the Joker's involved, but because Batman obviously saves Gotham, cleans up the streets, right? Dismantles like the Riddler's like plot at the end of this movie and looks at it like it's all hunky dory. Gotham's on the up and up. And then here comes the Joker spoil everything again, right? What are Joker's motivations for this next movie going to be? Okay, how is he going to have a backstory at all that they're going to dive into, or is it Barry Keoghan just going to own the film as we talked about before? There's so many question marks here. I want to see more Barry Keoghan in films to like get me prepped. for like
Yeah,
what I'm going to see. Because I don't know. I can't see him yet carrying a whole movie as an antagonist based on his filmography. I love Barry Keoghan. I love him. I think he's gonna be an absolute stud. Maybe like he already like has proven that to a lot of people. Maybe he's gonna already proven it to Matt Reeves, and he just trusts him with everything. And he's obviously talented. But Paul Dano is Paul Dano. He's an Academy Award nominated actor, and that can really bring this character to life. And then at a character like the Riddler, and now we're doing Barry Keoghan, a young, relatively inexperienced. I don't want to say inexperienced. I'm excited, but I'm not that excited. You know what I mean?
I disagree. Okay. I agree with your take that Paul Dano more established, definitely critically better and older. Everything that you said there, but think of Heath Ledger. Like he was an Oscar nominated as well, but he was only like 28. Like he was, or 27 at the time. Like he was filming. Like he was in only like 10 films, 12 films in his career, full features.
Yeah, you can
like,
make a comparison.
He wasn't in a lot.
You can make a comparison like Ra's al Ghul, like Liam Neeson's a bigger name at the time,
right?
Than perfect. So I kind of recant.
But and I think
I'm so excited.
Oh God, yeah. And like this isn't like Joaquin like coming in to grab an Oscar. This is gonna be Keoghan saying, "Okay, I'm playing the Joker," and then he's gonna go after this to an Oscar-winning career, probably. Like. So
I don't know what imagining a Joker in this Reeves universe. Like we thought we had just dealt with a serial killer like from the Riddler. What the hell are we going to get with the Joker?
That's my little.
I'm a little concerned about that and like how it's going to outdo such a massive story.
You already handled the corruption, right? And we can't like bring in a Harvey Dent to do again with the Joker. So like, what are we gonna do that's different from the Dark Knight, but also different than what the Riddler just did, which is very similar to what the Joker would do.
And somehow still loyal to comic books, you know?
And loyal to comic books, but not just straight chaos like the Joker. And it can't be organized crime again because this one did that. Dark Knight did that. It's gonna be interesting to see what Reeves and Peter Craig do here in the writing. But at the end of the day, I'm confident after seeing this one. The lead up to this franchise and the next one and all these series, I just hope we don't get bamboozled with these series and just overinflated.
As long as Matt Reeves is involved, I'm confident.
Yeah,
like I just flat out, he created this world. He knows how to take care of it. That's gonna do it for our spoiler-free review of the Batman. Make sure you subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, Stitcher, wherever you get your podcast. Make sure you watch the YouTube, subscribe to it, and make sure that you follow us on social media, Twitter, Instagram, at the Drive-In Pod. Okay. For the Drive-In Podcast, this is Dr. O. That was Ricky Flex, and that was our review of the Batman. Until next time, we will smell you.
A vengeance.